Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, CTV Advertising, Turning Commercial Breaks into Breakthroughs. My name is Lara Lima, and I'm part of the marketing team here at StackAdapt. So now, let's get started.
Good morning. I hope everybody came fired up to learn a little bit more about CTV. It's an exciting time, a lot of opportunity to expand into a channel that continues to become more and more important in our industry. My name is Kirk Nicholas, and I'm a sales director at StackAdapt.
And my name is Jay Pizzoli, and I'm a manager of client services here at StackAdapt.
Over the last 3.5 years that we've worked at StackAdapt, we've been blown away by the constant advancement of our platform and our team. Jay and I both started our careers here at about the 200 employee mark, and since we've grown to nearly 1,200. The vision of our leadership is clear. We need teams in place to build our platform in order to be on the cusp of innovation and allow our clients access to top-of-the-line products and services. Today, we'll be covering connected television, a channel that we spent years advancing our capabilities, inventory, and measurement. There is no end in sight for our innovation as it relates to CTV, so we're glad that you've come along for the ride.
All right. Well, we can kind of look at this. So, what is StackAdapt? Who are we? About us, what is this? I would say we can really dive into more of a technical answer here. But StackAdapt is a multi-channel digital advertising platform that's leading the industry with machine learning and AI at its core. Really ad buyers are able to plan, execute, and manage data-driven campaigns across all devices, inventory, and even publisher partners. We really specialize in native, display, video, CTV, audio, in-game, and digital out of home. So really, really all the different channels, a multi-channel approach here is what we take. StackAdapt has definitely been consistently voted the #1 DSP, as well as one of the top 100 software products on G2. So really, we're here to help support marketers globally. All right. We can get into the agenda here. So some of the topics that we're going to cover, just split here between Kirk and myself, but some of the things that we can dive into and that you'll be expecting with this webinar, navigating the CTV landscape, CTV strategy and recommendations, advanced campaign strategies for CTV, and then optimizing and measuring performance. And then again, we'll wrap it up with again, a little final key takeaways, as well as some time for Q&A. Awesome. All right, well, with that, we can jump into navigating the CTV landscape. So I will cover that section here for us. And perfect. So again, as Kirk kind of had mentioned already, CTV is really an ever-expanding channel. Based on the data from all of our advertisers within our StackAdapt platform, we're actually seeing a 50% increase in CTV usage in Q1 of 2024 versus the same period last year. So again, a really, really big increase in terms of what we see just within our own platform in terms of usage and adoption. So connected TV, or CTV, it's really the fastest growing major ad channel in the US. I would say US linear TV ad spend will decline by about 13-ish% next year, while CTV ad spend will actually increase by about a similar percentage, according to our forecasts. About 78% of households are reachable by programmatic connected TV, and that's about a 56% increase year over year. But really, what makes it so irresistible to marketers? Perhaps it's the ability to deliver highly targeted, data-driven campaigns that resonate with your viewers on a personal level, or maybe it's more the seamless integration and the ad experiences that you're viewing into the journey. You're really blurring the lines between entertainment and promotion. Regardless of the reasons, one thing is really clear: CTV is here to stay, as Kirk had mentioned, and its impact on the advertising world is really nothing short of seismic. All right. So as we can see here, kind of as we discussed and as we just talked about, that the linear TV ad spend will decline next year around 2025. CTV ad spend again is going to increase. Again, according to our forecast, we do want to mention here that 2024 is a little bit of an outlier for linear, especially. Reason being is there's the Olympics going on this summer and shortly here, as well as a US presidential election. So those two factors definitely weigh a little bit heavier in terms of linear. However, that being said, there's still a really large section that is going to be great for programmatic. Again, programmatic will account for about a little bit over 84% of the $32 billion going towards US CTV video spend in 2025. So that's huge. That's a lot. That's a really, really large piece of the pie to take advantage of here. Also, CTV is considered a must buy by about 70% of advertisers. This was actually from an IAB study. So really something that's gaining a lot of traction and something that is, a must have for a lot of the advertisers that we're seeing. Perfect. So within that, again, the benefits here, there's a lot of things that we can do. They're very budget friendly, right? Comparatively to linear, you're really able to, make most of your ad spend dollar. You are able to really go after your target audience. You're able to really navigate that. But again, like linear TV is expensive. You're not really able to optimize in real time. You're not able to do a lot of the things that you can do with CTV. So the budget friendly portion is really fantastic. It's really going to be helpful there. Again, comparatively to what we're seeing for linear TV. Again, the targeting precision, I think, is another really amazing piece. So you're really able to, with programmatic, and especially with StackAdapt, really narrow in on your audience. Who are you going after? Who is this specific audience? In full detail, whether that's first-party data or third-party data or a combination of the two. I think those things are really, really important to be able to exactly define the characteristics, the demographics, the audience personalities and persona types that you're going after. So you really are minimizing your, media waste, if you will, and targeting users who are not in your intended audience. Improve viewability. So viewability is really measuring, how many users have actually seen your asset. So we definitely have a lot of improved metrics there, especially with partners and things and partnerships as well, making sure that we have high completion rates, that they're going to be on the right channels at the right time, going after that intended audience. Again, really making use of who we're going after and making sure that somebody's actually viewing that. One of the things in terms of our platform, we actually don't count viewability unless the video asset has played. A lot of other platforms and other DSPs have a different way of measuring that. So our viewability is definitely something where someone has actually physically seen that asset. I would say premium and responsive audiences, again, similar to that targeting precision, like using your first party data, using the people that are going to be already interested, already inclined, already engaged, going after that subset, even maybe a lookalike audience based off of that. So we have a lot of different capabilities and targeting capabilities within the StackAdapt platform related to CTV that's really, really impactful. Again, extending your reach, minimizing overlap between audiences, things of that nature. A variety of ad formats is another really great benefit. So you can have as many ad formats really as you want, different varieties. We always recommend testing between, maybe a lifestyle or a product image, testing the different messaging that you have. Again, understanding which call to action is going to be most resonant with your intended audience. Those are some of the things that are really beneficial in terms of you have that customization here within the CTV landscape in the platform. And finally, real-time metrics. You get to see what's happening in your performance in real time. You're able to optimize in real time. Linear does not offer that kind of customization. You have it, it's kind of a set and a play, whereas within the programmatic space, and especially within StackAdapt, we have a lot of different levers that we can pull to make sure that we're going to be successful. Did just want to quickly call out one kind of an interesting point here, the images here on the right. So kind of the traditional buy, two different subsets of people, they could be completely different intended audiences. They're going to see that same asset if they're watching a similar show. However, with addressable TV, programmatic and CTV, we can actually send them different assets, right? Because they're likely in different persona profiles. So even if they're watching the same TV show, they can be served completely different ads because they're going to be in a completely addressable target audience. So great, a lot of really cool things here. But again, a lot of benefits that we have for CTV, which is great. All right. And then overcoming some of the fragmentation. So obviously, of course, there's going to be a little bit of, it's complicated, right? I think that CTV is complex. We're here to help the marketers navigate this landscape. Really, there's tons of audiences to go after. There's tons of networks to choose from in terms of inventory. Attribution and closing the gap between your upper funnel awareness and maybe your lower funnel conversion metrics. There's just a lot happening, so it definitely can be confusing. So we understand that. However, here are 3 really great tips that are going to help kind of overcome that fragmentation and help sort of keep that portion calm, if you will. So first one is going to be consolidating your ad buys. So rolling all of your CTV into one platform, to really help quantify performance and avoid that audience oversaturation. Again, that you're not going to have overlaps if you're running something within the same platform. You're not going to have that, ad fatigue, much less. Again, really putting into one area, having it so it's not so siloed where you're having to check multiple platforms for performance and getting updates and consolidating reporting. Having it all in one area is going to be much easier, especially with our machine learning and our AI. It's really going to help the algorithm just better determine who we're going after and really dive in and target our intended users. Speaking of that, audience first targeting is definitely something that we always like to recommend. So I always like to say, go after your audience no matter where they are, versus deciding this is where my audience is going to be. Typically, we aren't accurate on those. Sure, there might be some of them there. However, we don't know where people are going to be across the internet, and we shouldn't. But what we can do is really make sure that we're going after that audience first, no matter where they happen to be. And then again, following up with a little bit more attribution, which pulls me into the final one, which is the multi-channel attribution here. So with that, again, closing the gap between awareness and conversion funnels. So with StackAdapt, we can track users who've completed a certain percentage of a CTV asset and later retarget them with a clickable asset. So a display, a native, a video, again, pushing that user down that funnel and really getting them closer to that final conversion event that we want them to take. All right, well, we can pass it over to Kirk here for some strategy.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Well done. Next, I'll be walking you through a plethora of CTV strategy recommendations, from inventory to audiences to the asset itself. So let's jump in. First and foremost, outside of our standard run of network package, which includes inventory across numerous different publishers, StackAdapt has negotiated PMP deals that you're able to locate directly within the platform. We can also negotiate programmatic guarantee deals on your behalf, saving you time and headache while reaching out to different publishers directly. So starting off with PMP deals, we can establish direct deals via the private marketplace for premium inventory across top CTV apps and channels. Deal category examples include live sports, political, news, lifestyle, and entertainment. It's worth noting that you can also select specific packages by country within our platform as well. Access first look inventory and audience data for precise targeting. And finally, leverage existing publisher relationships for preferential pricing and terms. Again, taking that headache out of the negotiation on your behalf. Next, programmatic guaranteed. So utilize programmatic guarantee deals for high value inventory reservations. Essentially, agreeing to a price and a number of impressions to serve during a campaign. Secure premium ad placements across, again, live sports, news, and other top rated shows. And the benefit of automation while guaranteeing ad delivery in desired contexts. And then finally, we have data-driven optimization. So leverage viewership data to identify high-performing inventory sources. We're able to adjust bids and budgets in real time to prioritize premium slots. And as Jay mentioned, we can kind of understand from our reporting, where we need to make these different optimizations, real-time movements. And then finally, and something that we'll probably talk about a couple times today, is we are able to retarget viewers across channels for maximum exposure during live events. So really closing the gap between that top of funnel branding and awareness to the bottom of the funnel where we start to drive more conversions. Okay. Next up, best tactics to achieve our incremental reach. So starting off with multi-channel data. At StackAdapt, we talk often about increasing reach by incorporating a multi-channel approach. How can you supplement your current campaigns with an additional channel? What effect will it have on reach and performance? Our in-platform forecasting tool will help you to better understand how adding CTV to your display, native, video, audio campaigns can extend your audience reach by 3 to 10%. The next point here is audience suppression. So this acts to ensure that we are not placing ads in front of users that have already completed an action item, like a purchase or a sign up, etc. So what we're able to do is upload your email suppression lists via our partnership with LiveRamp, which is in platform, and add them easily to your campaign, again, to make sure that we're not hitting users that we don't want to be hitting. Frequency capping. This ensures that we are not creating a fatigue by placing too many ads in front of a user. I was recently watching the US track and field Olympic trials this weekend, and I saw my favorite fast food restaurant's ad about a dozen times in an hour. The first 4 times I wanted to drive in half an hour to get a cheeseburger. But the anytime after that, I kind of lost my appetite for it. So we'll make sure that we reach out to that restaurant and ask about their frequency settings. And then finally, creative incrementality. How many assets has a user seen before converting? What's the perfect multi-channel blend? Our team can better help you understand this through our creative incrementality reporting. All you need to do is ask your account manager, our team, for that report. Okay, incremental reach forecasting. This is an exciting one. This is a new tool of StackAdapt's and one that we're very excited about. Everybody loves a Venn diagram. This one in particular shows how much of our audience overlaps through your linear TV and your programmatic CTV efforts. How much opportunity is there for us to target more people on the CTV side? So this is powered by Samba's TV automatic content recognition, ACR dataset. Incremental reach forecasting and measurement is an in-platform solution that helps quantify the incremental reach gain by adding programmatic to our linear TV buys. So we use this solution to understand how much of your target audience can be reached on programmatic channels. For the forecasting portion of incremental reach, you can search for an advertiser's linear TV campaign within our platform and generate reach forecasts, helping to plan your CTV campaigns and allocate budget between CTV and linear efforts. So our forecasts are generated instantly. How much of your CTV are you missing by not, or how much of your audience are you not running or hitting by running CTV? The second portion of this is the measurement part. So once the programmatic campaigns have been launched, you can measure the incremental reach gained over linear TV buys directly within the StackAdapt platform. These reports are generated within 24 hours. They're refreshed daily, and they include metrics like reach proportion and unique reach. So we can get this reporting down to the DMA level. We can hit reach and frequency goals by adding programmatic to your linear TV buys. So we're very excited about this tool. Again, please be sure to ask your team about this so that we can test it out for you. Finally, and maybe the star of the show, are the assets. So regardless of how dialed you are on the audience or the inventory that we feel confident in, great assets are what make campaigns successful. So what do we need to do to catch the attention of our audience? And before I jump into this, I want you to know, in case you're not aware, that we do have a creative studio service, and you have a creative strategist assigned to your account. So if you need help with any of your assets, not just CTV, please feel free to reach out to our team. So first, leverage storytelling. Engage viewers with a compelling narrative. As advertisers, we're proud of the products, solutions, and businesses that we promote. CTV is a perfect opportunity to highlight each of those through well-made creative video assets. Do you remember your favorite CTV asset? What made it so memorable? Second, optimize for big screen experience. Leverage a big screen canvas with high quality visuals. Use cinematic shots, vibrant colors, dynamic motion. Audio is also a big part of CTV, so we want to make sure that our audio is sounding crisp and clean. Third, focus on our emotional connections. Evoke emotions and create memorable experiences that leave a lasting impression. Can your assets tug at heartstrings? Can you make somebody smile, or even create an urgency for your audience? Fourth, personalize for different audience segments. Align your creative messaging with target audience interests. Not everybody is going to be the same. Not everybody needs to see the same asset. With CTV, we are able to break out campaigns by audiences, so you can have individual or separate creatives for each audience. And then leverage data-driven insights for personal ad experiences. And finally, integrate your brand seamlessly. So integrate branding naturally into the ad experience. You want to avoid disruptive or intrusive product placements. And again, if you have questions or need help with your creative assets, please feel free to reach out to our team. They do a fantastic job. Shout out Creative Studio. Okay. Finally, we'll highlight our targeting methods to close the loop on our overall CTV strategy. So the first one that I wanted to point out here is first-party targeting. I think that we all know that first-party data is gold data to have these days, especially with the elimination of cookies happening eventually. So through our in-platform integration with LiveRamp, you can target anyone in your CRM list who has previously engaged with your brand, or as previously noted, we can use your list as a suppression. Additionally, we can target households that look like your valuable first-party users by running lookalike modeling. We can do that based on your list or a pixel that we place. Contextual interest and intent audiences. So we can target anyone who has searched for your product, brand, or competitors. A great strategy for campaigns with a cost per acquisition goal. The next one is third-party targeting. So again, we're able to target households using segments based on traits like age, gender, income, presence of kids, vacationers, shopping intent, if they use a Visa or MasterCard. There are hundreds of thousands of different segments within our third-party data catalog that you can utilize. And then finally, retargeting. And again, this will be one that we talk about often. I think advertisers these days are especially concerned on, how is their dollar being spent? How can we tie it back to success? And so we're able to close the gap, as I mentioned earlier, on the top of funnel to the bottom of the funnel with our retargeting. So retarget connected TV viewers across other devices in the household, or retarget anyone who has visited your website with a CTV impression. Okay. Next, now that we have a general grasp of some CTV high-level strategies, let's dive into a little bit more of our advanced tactics. It's hot here in Colorado, so I have to take a sip every once in a while. Okay, so we have an understanding of general tactics and strategies that we can implement for our CTV campaigns, but how do we take it to the next level? We definitely want to run A/B testing across inventory, creatives, and audiences. Testing is another thing that you'll hear StackAdapt employees or StackAdapters talk about often. We want to ensure that we're providing the highest performance. We have no contracts and no minimum spend requirements. So our entire retention model is based on performance. And in order to reach that performance, we feel like we have to test a lot of different things across the board. So one thing that we can test is breaking out our run of network campaigns versus PMPs or programmatic guarantee deals. As Jay mentioned earlier, oftentimes clients come to us with a handful of channels that they assume their target audience is hanging out at, which oftentimes is fair assumption to make. But as Jay mentioned, our recommendation is to always start broad, and then we can begin to eliminate our inventory, our deals, the publishers that we're running through. And you'd be surprised where some of your target audience is actually spending time watching CTV content. Be mindful of our recommended CPM bids to ensure that we're hitting the floor price. Luckily, when you look in our platform, our deals all have a recommended bid. So this shouldn't be an issue. But if there's any concern around that, again, please reach out to our team. And then creative. So utilize both 15 and 30-second video links and 2 to 3 different variations. Lifestyle versus product images or something of the sort. Again, we're going to go in there and look at that reporting to ensure that or to understand which assets are working best. Should we shift budgets from one asset to another? Be mindful of setting household demographics like male versus female. And this is a really important note. For CTV, this can exclude an entire household if a male or a female resides in one of each, or in one, which can severely limit your reach and scale. So make sure that we're starting with both male and female. So essentially just leave it in the platform. It's best to run CTV on a larger geo to scale our campaigns. We want to avoid running on a handful of zip codes, which can chokehold your campaign. And then lastly, best for high-level awareness campaigns are CTV campaigns. Of course, we can set up percentile tracking to retarget users who view X percentage of your asset with a display, native, and video asset to kind of close that gap. But please keep in mind that CTV is very much a top-of-funnel tactic. Okay. Great. And then here we are again, CTV retargeting. So in order to drive some conversions or prove that ROI, we usually recommend utilizing CTV retargeting across any of those different channels. So send a display or a native ad to users that have completed a certain percentage of your CTV. We typically always recommend this tactic. So definitely a good one to put in place there. I got a little puppy I'm trying to manage today too here, so apologies for that. Great. So another cool tactic that we have is the ability to retarget linear TV viewers. Again, this is through our partnership with Samba and their ACR technology. We can leverage off-the-shelf linear TV audiences across our programmatic channels. So with Samba, we can retarget linear TV viewers across programmatic channels. And the example, through their segments, we can target individuals that have maybe watched the Republican presidential debates or Democratic presidential debates, or those that have maybe seen like certain town halls on CNN. Really anything that a user is viewing on linear, we can retarget them after that. Cool. And forecasting, again, another tool that we spend quite a bit of time on upgrading. I would say that if you utilize our forecasting tool on the platform, definitely check it out. It's something that I kind of nerd out over. So this tool allows us to understand our estimated audience size, the number of unique users, daily impressions available, if our budget is to spend in full, what it would look like if we added an extra $1 million, where the targeted audience is actually consuming media. How will the campaign spend if I include 1 PMP or 10 PMPs? What would happen if I included more geos? So there's a lot of different things that we can test in our forecasting tool to kind of help us better understand how our budgets are going to spend and scale. Okay,
Perfect.
I'll pass it back over to Jay.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kirk. All right. Obviously, there's been a lot that we've talked about here. So kind of putting a lot of these pieces together, again, the things that we've just really discussed over the last 30 minutes or so will greatly help our overall understanding of CTV and best practices. From here, what we want to dive into is more of the optimization and measurement of performance. So what does that look like? We will show you. So CTV is truly an upper funnel tactic. Again, I know we've really harped on that a good amount here on this webinar, but really want to make sure that rings true to everybody. So really best used for that awareness, repeated exposure at appropriate intervals, is really key to brand recall and brand recognition. And CTV is really just one of the best ways and best channels to achieve that goal. Some of the performance metrics, and I think this is going to be, excuse me, actually answering one of the questions I believe posed by Matt, but we'll get into a little bit of this later in the Q&A. Some of the performance metrics to pay attention to and to optimize towards are as follows. Obviously, impressions delivered is one of the main things. So making sure, again, as Kirk mentioned, our CPM bids are high enough to hit those floor prices so that we're actually winning impressions and serving those to our audiences and making sure that's sizable enough to deliver in full. So definitely something to be aware of and just making sure we're getting those impressions one. Another one is going to be cost per completed view, or CPCV, in our platform. Again, typically for CTV, we're going to be looking for a goal of between 3 and 5 cents per user. So we can make some optimizations if we're seeing something higher than that, if we're seeing something lower, and we'll dive into what those are going to be in a couple of slides here. Another piece is going to be video completion rate. So a true CTV or living room experience, like on a smart TV and things like that, are typically not skippable, right? So usually that's going to be about 100% unless somebody exits what they're watching completely, unplugs Netflix or however, that might be something. However, OTT or over the top is going to be clickable, or can be clickable and can be skippable. So that's going to be still streaming content. However, it's served on a laptop, a desktop, your tablet, or your mobile device. So it is a little bit different there. So we do want to be kind of cognizant of that. However, VCR, video completion rate, is definitely another piece that we would look at. View through conversion. So this one's a little bit of a tricky one. A standalone CTV campaign is really not going to be the main driver of conversions. I know we've talked about that in terms of, upper funnel awareness, brand, engagement and recall. So CTV alone just by itself is definitely not going to be the piece that you're going to see, tenfold conversions come through on. However, what we've been saying, and again, kind of, theme of the webinar here, is using pixels. We can retarget those users based off of the percentiles that they've completed on that actual asset of how much they've viewed. So using our pixels in the platform, essentially what we do is we collect a pool of users based off of, like, let's just say they saw 75% and up of your asset. Well, we want to pull those into a pool so we can retarget them later with a display, a native, a video asset, something that's clickable, something that's going to get them to your website or the customer's website, get them right to the front door right before they would make that conversion, correct? Like, we want to have a little bit of a different messaging for them because, again, this is not their first exposure. So we really can kind of curtail that and customize that. So we're leading that user, they've been exposed, they understand who we are, and now we're leading them to the action that they want to take. So again, you'll probably hear this a couple more times, but really want to hammer that point home that the retargeting piece is really great for closing that gap. And then finally here, a unique device breakdown. So really just helps to better understand, where your audience is viewing your ads. Where are they? Not necessarily within the ecosphere of inventory, but are they looking and they viewing this on their TV? Are they watching on their computer or maybe on their mobile while they're commuting? So really understanding what that looks like can help us better determine where audiences are, what type of assets we need to put forward, what type of inventory we're looking for, to really make sure that we're making the best use of our media dollars. All right, so jumping into some of the optimization tactics here. So for CTV campaigns, there truly aren't a ton of optimizations. However, these are some of the things that we typically see. So an underpacing campaign is something that, not super common, but it's going to be one of the issues that would potentially come up here. So again, as we've said, making sure your CPM bid is high enough to hit that floor price, specifically with a PMP deal or a PG deal. Again, those things are always talked about and negotiated ahead of time. Again, if you're underpacing, like expanding your geo, are we limited? Are we running only on zip codes and maybe a handful of zip codes? We need to expand that to, a DMA level, a city level, a state level, nationwide if we can. That kind of a thing is going to get us that scale where we're really able to influence those users. Expand your audience if you have to. If we're going after a really, really niche audience, we want to make sure we're being cognizant of, frequency, right? We don't want to bludgeon them over the head with assets. That's going to do the exact opposite of what we're looking to do. So if we aren't scaling there, we might need to expand our audiences a bit, or, if we can't, then we would have to understand and look to a couple other things. Some of those being adding OTT, so that over the top, again, still streaming content, just served on a laptop, desktop, tablet, or a mobile device. If you don't happen to have that engaged immediately, that might be something that we would be able to plug in to help open up a little bit more available inventory. Perfect. Another kind of thing also, lastly, like adding creative sizes, right? If you're only running a 30-second, well, let's think about adding a 15-second asset in there as well. Just again, giving you a little bit more available inventory to place your desired assets into or to your desired audience. Perfect. Another kind of thing to look for. So if we're running a run of network campaign, so that's not a PMP or a PG setup. So that would just be like our run of network, still really good quality inventory, just a little bit more cost effective. But for that, you would probably want to every now and again, audit your supply sources, ensure that you're serving onto content where the CPM range is what you want. You're getting engagement like you want, or you're seeing, end all conversions come through from there, whatever that metric is, making sure that we're running on things that are getting us the KPIs that we want for our campaigns. Cool. Obviously mentioned adding in different video lengths, 15 to 30 seconds. Typically, we like to stray away from 60-second as there's just not that much inventory there. So 15 and 30 are typically the bulk of what we like to do. I would say for self-serve clients, you should be checking in on your CTV campaigns probably 2 to 3 times a week if we're looking at like an average 30-day flight. If they're shorter, then definitely more frequently would be advised. But typically with that, we like to say once you get them up and running, like give them a week, give them 5 to 7 days or so to become mature, to spend, to hit the levels that we need before we make any crazy adjustments or pause or cancel those campaigns, just because we aren't getting statistically significant data within that first handful of days yet. We want to make sure that we're making thoughtful and really, really smart optimization. So we need to do that based off of data. Perfect. And then I would say typically, CTV completion rates are high, around 95%. So typically not something we're super concerned with in terms of like true living room quality experience. Might be something we would want to look at for our OTT devices. If the client is CPM conscious, that again, selecting appropriate PMP deals or more of that run of network deal, again, for cost effectiveness. I know we've kind of talked about this as well before, but we're going to mention it again here for you. Just a good takeaway. But CTV is best to expand the reach of your brand, your initiative, your product, anything across a large audience. So that repeated exposure at the top of the funnel really helps users with that brand awareness, brand recall that can later be influenced by strategic retargeting campaigns with clickable assets. Again, the display, the native, the videos. Okay, so attribution made possible with CTV. So this is kind of putting together the how we actually retarget them. So this is where the percentile completion retargeting comes into play for CTV. So, again, clearly the theme of the day, but you're able to close that gap. You're really able to get those users and push for those conversions if that's what we're looking for. So however, we're using pixels within our own StackAdapt platform. And with that, we're going to be able to pull in that retargeting audience based off of that X number of completion rates and up. We then retarget that audience again with that clickable asset, native, display, video, to again have a slightly different message because it's not their first exposure. Again, these assets are going to get them right to that front door to complete that action. Again, using that, and then with that, we can measure things like site traffic, on-site actions or conversion events, brand lift, which we'll get into in just another slide, or even foot traffic, depending on kind of what we're measuring and what the goals of the campaigns. So we can understand if somebody's seen a CTV ad and did they actually physically go to a store that we're trying to promote. So things like that we can definitely measure. So a lot of the things that we're able to do to really tie in the lower funnel pieces with the upper funnel. All right, so this slide should actually look a little bit familiar. The incremental reach measurement portion. So Kirk was talking about the forecasting. However, this is also something that we can use in terms of measurement. So when we are running these things and running CTV in conjunction with your linear efforts, again, as Kirk mentioned, we can see where that overlap is. You can see that additional percentage of audience that you weren't able to capture with linear that we are able to capture with CTV, and we can report on those details. So really a lot of the things that we can do for this. And again, like as Kirk had mentioned, this is really great, really fun, brand new tool that we've got to be able to use, but it's just really helpful and insightful to be able to understand what this looks like and then actually report on that once we actually have it live and in platform. So better to hit your frequency goals and your reach and frequency goals by adding CTV into the mix in addition to your linear, again, just expanding your reach and the more people that you can go after. Reporting is refreshed daily in our platform and it generates within 24 hours. So you have something that's fairly close and as up to date as possible. And the reporting that we can do is going to get down to the state or even DMA level. So we do have as much granularity there as possible. All right, now diving into the brand lift, excuse me, as I mentioned before. So brand lift is really used to recall, sentiment or like, awareness. Recall the sentiment of your awareness ads. Like how impactful and effective was your ad in persuading a user to do the action you wanted them to do? So basically what we do here in this scenario, we would have a user see a CTV ad just in the wild on our regular CTV campaigns. And then we essentially are collecting that user as part of our exposed group. We would then serve them a rich media display asset that our creative studio team will create for you. And essentially what it does is it's asking a question. And there's a couple different answers there that we will hope that the user will respond to. And with that, we can better understand, do you recall seeing an ad for a, certain truck for the last, 30 days? Yes, no, I don't know, whatever that looks like. So whatever those questions we do, we can pose that to the group and really gain an understanding again of how impactful our campaigns were. So again, we would have, we have essentially the same process here. So we have an exposed group and we have a control group. So we're actually be able to kind of measure the two and measure the difference in lift between those two different respondent groups. So really, really impactful again on measuring kind of post-campaign wrap-up, measuring how impactful or effective this was. All right. With that, we've covered pretty much the gist of the content here. Again, thank you so much for paying attention. I know it was a little bit of a fire hose at everybody, but we do have some questions here and some wrap-up Q&A. I know there was one asking about Kirk's tattoo on his arm. I'll let him explain that one.
No, I didn't see that one come through. Oh yeah, that is the home state of Wisconsin. Yeah, thanks, Chris. You probably would recognize the restaurant that I was talking about, being that it's headquartered in Wisconsin too, Chris.
Cool.
Any questions related to CTV and not my tattoos?
And with this, again, we can also kind of go over some wrap up pieces. I do want to kind of put this final piece, but I did want to just jump into that because I got a kick out of it. That was funny. Anyway, so within the wrap up, obviously, optimizing and measuring performance regularly, right? We want to make sure we're checking in on these campaigns. It's not just to set it and forget it. There's a couple different things that we want to do, but making sure that we're understanding what those metrics are for success and having those as benchmarks and then optimizing for them and making sure that we're pushing our campaigns to be able to reach and exceed those different KPIs. And then we can do, implementing obviously advanced campaign tactics. So, multi-goal organization here, and, audience segmentation. Again, we really just want to make sure that we're plugging in some of those advanced tactics that Kirk had talked about so that we are able to make the best use of our campaigns and our strategies. There's a lot of different capabilities and functions that we have here at StackAdapt related to CTV as well. So really, really want to make sure that we're using those to really tie in our strategy and have a really holistic, well-rounded, campaigns. That's the whole point. And then finally, really, expanding your reach beyond CTV. So integrating your CTV campaigns, with other digital channels, like as we had said, display, native, audio, digital out of home, whatever we want to do, we can kind of combine those two and really making sure that we're looking at a multi-channel strategy. And again, so that portion of combining or closing the gap between the funnels, top of the funnel and lower the funnel is another piece there. Again, how you're branching out. So something that we just want to reiterate, making sure that you're taking home is that, CTV is really fantastic. However, we do want to follow that up with, some additional channels as well to make sure that we're capturing and making the most out of our audience that we've exposed with those CTV pieces. Kirk, any pieces to add on to that or any wrap up that I might have missed?
No, I think you crushed it, Jay. And, just wanted to really thank everybody for showing up today. I know that you all as marketers are very busy. And so we really appreciate you spending 43 minutes thus far with us on a Wednesday.
Awesome. And we can
Wonderful.
get to the Q&A here. Oh, go ahead, Lara.
Oh, thank you so much, Jay. So let's now move on to the Q&A session. I see there are a lot of questions coming through, so thank you everybody for engaging. As a reminder, you can submit your questions under the Q&A section on the right side of your screen. So let's start with the ones we received during the webinars. First one, any tips for scaling our ads without a big budget increase?
Sure. I think some of the things that we talked about, right? You don't necessarily need to have $100,000 to run a successful CTV campaign. We would recommend, at least $10,000 though. We want to make sure again that we're giving ourselves the chance to be statistically significant with our data. And it does, require a bit of an investment there in terms of that. However, being smart with your ad formats, being smart with the type of asset that you're running, right? As Kirk had mentioned, like telling that story, really having that piece and that engaging assets can be really powerful and impactful. Honing in on your audience, making sure that we're going after exactly who you're intended to go after. We don't want to waste media dollars on areas where, we aren't going to be seeing any return from them. Maximizing optimizing and maximizing our performance, making sure that we're checking in on them every couple of days to make sure, nothing's fallen off or there isn't a provider that we're serving inventory on that's not getting us the KPIs. It's maybe dragging everything down. So just making those optimizations and really putting together all the pieces that we had talked about from, setup to advanced tactics to your optimizations, like those will all work together to ensure that you can make the best use of your budget for CTV.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next question. How do we avoid overexposing our audience? Do you have a frequency cap recommendation?
With that, it really depends again on the audience size. So, what are we doing with them? Where are they? Things of that nature. I think that typically we like to give it, again, a couple of days to run so we can understand where that frequency lies. And then if we see it's, okay, that's too high, we can put in a frequency cap. If it's not, we can give it some goals to nudge it along a little bit to maybe give some more impressions. That is really going to depend on your audience size. If we have an audience size of 1,000, your frequency cap is going to be a lot if we have a bigger budget to get through. If we have an audience size of a couple million, then it's probably going to be around like between 3 and 5, or even 4 and 7 range. I think that's healthy. Again, overexposure is going to happen, as Kirk had mentioned, when you hit 10 plus impressions within an hour. I think if we're able to spread that out over the course of a couple of days or a week, that's really kind of going to be your sweet spot.
Wonderful. What metrics are available to advertisers on CTV outside of just total impressions?
Yeah, so we covered a little bit that in terms of kind of the things that you would be looking for your optimizations, but things like video completion rate, cost per completed view, the devices that you're running on, just understanding what that looks like. You could look at things like time on site from your retargeting. So some of those pieces will help kind of look at that and holistically show. But you're right, within strict CTV, really, impressions delivered, looking at your cost per completed view, looking at your video completion rate, and then looking at maybe just like supply sources that we're running on and the different inventory channels that we're running on, and just making some optimizations there.
Well said. Anything to add, Kirk?
No, I think Jay covered it.
Wonderful. So let's move on to the next question. Is $10,000 a good ballpark minimum? What is the length of time you should spend that for statewide geo? 30 days, 60 days?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think that if we had it our way, and our recommendation would be $10,000 over a month-long period. And the reason for that is because, being that CPM costs are a little bit more expensive than our other channels, we want to make sure that our campaigns are able to scale. Additionally, we also want to include more than one tactic, right? So we want to include our browsing audience segments, third-party data, CRM lists, lookalike audiences, retargeting, have a really good mix of those tactics that fall in different areas of that funnel, right? Like third-party data starting at the top, your CRM lists and lookalike audiences, more mid-funnel tactic, and then finally that retargeting. So if it were my money, I would probably do $10,000 per 30 days. And kind of make a decision from that point on, how do we want to move forward? Do we want to expand 10,000 over 60 days? Do we want to increase our budgets over 30 days? But I think that $10,000 over a month is a pretty good place to start, and really allows us to kind of flex our muscles through the different tactics that we're able to provide.
Thank you so much, Kirk. Let's move on to the next one. Could you talk more about the different CTV ad formats?
Yeah. Really the kind of the thing that we're going to be looking at there is asset length. 6-second is like the smallest amount of time that we would be able to put forward. 15-second is going to be kind of the majority of our inventory, I would say. And then 30 seconds is after that. So really what we're looking at is going to be different length. We always like to recommend as high as quality video assets as possible. So like movie quality or cinema quality, if possible, just to make sure that viewing experience is really powerful and impactful, that your asset is crisp and clear. I think we've all seen commercials come through or ads come through that are blurry or something's a little bit off, and it kind of turns you off of that, right? So making sure that that's not going to happen to you and to your advertiser. So really kind of doing that double check and making sure that we have the highest quality video assets is going to be really helpful. But if you're going to do some testing, like choosing two very different assets so that we can really make a distinction between the two. So one of them might be, again, product centric, right? It shows more details about the product that you're serving or that you're trying to promote, how somebody would use it, maybe some testimonials, things of that nature. And then maybe something else could be more lifestyle, where it's completely different. It shows, people in a natural environment and, things of that nature. And they have slightly different call to actions, but you can understand which one's resonating more with your audience, and then use that information to go forward and maybe change your strategy in terms of the creative that you're developing, the messaging that you're using, and things of that nature.
Wonderful. Next one. What is your POV on the CTV competition during presidential election this year? Should we pull back spend?
Well, are you promoting election and political stuff? I would say no, if that's the case, because it's definitely gonna be really, really competitive this year. If not, I would say just be cognizant of what's happening when. Prices are going to get more expensive. They typically get more expensive when we hit Q4 anyway. The fact that it's a presidential election year is going to make that, exacerbate that. So it's going to be expensive. I don't foresee it being a crazy like 10-fold CPM hike. Don't quote me on that. But typically what we see is going to be, increases, but they aren't staggering. But Yes, beware of that. If you know that your client is CPM conscious, maybe that's when you dial back a little bit, or maybe that's when you pushed a little bit more of the run of network inventory as opposed to a PMP deal or something that's more premium. So kind of thinking about it that way, I wouldn't recommend necessarily scaling back budgets just because like you want to keep your momentum forward, right? You want to keep that going. You want to keep that portion alive and there for your viewers to see. Yes, there's going to be competition from other things as well, but you don't want to let that drown like your share of voice.
Well said. Next one from Melissa. For those who want to mix some self-managed use of the platform along with managed, where do you recommend the best place to start is? There are tons of great resources, thank you, but it can feel overwhelming.
Yeah, this is a great question. What I would say is certainly start off with the StackAdapt Academy. We have some really good high-level videos that kind of walk you through where to find everything in the platform, the bells and whistles, the levers to pull. So that's a good area to start with. And then depending on, if you have a team, if you have an assigned account manager or an account executive, we can be pretty flexible. If you want to schedule weekly, bi-weekly, monthly trainings, we certainly can go ahead and do that. Now, if you have access to a CSM member, what we can do is, recommend certain, trainings, webinars, blog posts, support articles, which would be another thing that I would add. Our support center is very dialed in. Pretty much any keyword that you want to type in there, there's going to be a plethora of different support articles. For example, if you just type in pixel, I think we have about 20 support articles that talk about the different types of pixels, how to implement them, what data we can obtain from them. So certainly reach out to your team if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed. We want to make sure that you feel comfortable and confident in the platform, and whatever we need to do to get you to that point, we're happy to assist you with. But definitely start off with those videos in the support center.
Great answer.
Yeah, I agree. Next question. My clients are deterred by higher CPMs. Do you see that going down soon, or how do you justify it versus YouTube or all OLV?
Yeah, I mean, no is the short answer. We don't really see those going down. I think they've actually been fairly consistent over the last couple of years, which is great. I think the overall trend in the next couple of years, yeah, we'll definitely see that go down just as this becomes much more widely adopted. It's just kind of the nature of how that works. However, at the moment, they're pretty consistent. I think, between a 30 and a 35 CPM bid is kind of what we typically recommend. However, we typically see the CPMs come in lower than that, especially on a run of network. So we can do things in the $20 range, 20, 22, 23. So let us know what that looks like. If there's a specific CPM that your client's needing and asking for, like talk to us about that, right? Talk to your reps, make sure that we're on the same ground there. If it's, hey, we need CTV for $6, well, that's probably not great considering the inventory that you're getting at $6. So things like that, we'll just have some discussions around and make sure that we're putting the best practice forward. So for the CPM part, I would say I like your questions about online video and YouTube. So YouTube is a completely walled garden. Programmatic cannot access that. That's just a fully direct buy. It's a good place to have for sure for exposure and awareness. However, you're going to be pigeonholed into getting the reporting back from Google. They are not very transparent. And a lot of the times, again, the way they kind of run their things is going to be specific for theirs. They'd like to keep their business in-house, which understandable. But that's a completely different area where, they set their own rules really with YouTube. So that's not necessarily always the most cost-effective way to do it because you're just pigeonholed to one provider and one channel. Whereas within programmatic, we're able to really go and maximize your reach based off of your CPM and your budget requirements. So we have a lot more customization here. In terms of online video, sure, you could definitely do it there. It's definitely going to be more cost-effective. However, that could be skippable inventory. So there's some things and some ups and downs that you have to take and kind of trade with those two. But really, really great questions.
What I would just add something to that. Excuse me. When having that conversation with your client, if they're running display native video campaigns, the thought by adding these multi-channel tactics or multi-channel solutions like incorporating CTV, incorporating audio, which are more top of the funnel, is that we're driving more net new users into the top of that funnel and pushing them down through the funnel with our tactics like CRM, lookalike audiences, retargeting. So what I'm getting at is by adding CTV and audio, the thought is that our metrics will begin to improve as we begin to drive more net new users into the top of that funnel. So you can kind of position it as that, like, hey, we're running display right now. I feel like if we add online video or CTV, we should see our display metrics and perhaps conversions begin to increase.
Well said. So next question, would 18 plus exclusions restrict ads to households without children?
With that, I would say, be a little bit careful there. Typically what's going to happen is we're really only targeting 18 plus anyway. So it's kind of redundant to plug that in. It's not necessarily going to exclude households with children just because it's registered to the adults. So for that, you're not necessarily going to miss out on that. Obviously, internet services and devices and things aren't necessarily registered to people under 18. So typically that's not going to be a major impact. However, again, legality purposes, things of that nature, that's typically that is exactly what our systems and our algorithms are set to do, for everybody from the start.
Wonderful. Just be mindful of time. I think we have time for one last question.
Great.
Are StackAdapt services available for only US businesses, or are you also available in Canada, targeting Canadian audiences?
This will be a quick one, so we might have time for one more. But yes, we are able to target audiences in Canada. We're actually a Toronto-based company, so we do feel comfortable with our CTV offerings across North America and even globally. As I mentioned, we've grown to 1,200 employees. Those employees are located around the world, so we feel confident. Of course, there are going to be some limitations in terms of inventory and tactics and other things like that, but we are able to utilize our CTV offering globally.
Wonderful. You said it. It will be fast. We do have time for one last. So if you're doing a new branding experience for the client for the first time, how should we utilize CTV? What should I think before I plan it out? And what cost should I go for?
Yeah, great question. I think, again, as we had mentioned, CTV is really that great piece for that upper level branding and awareness, right? So especially if this is going to be the first time or the first opening of this brand or of whatever you're promoting, like really pushing that out as far and wide as you possibly can to the areas it's available, obviously, to make sure that you're getting that awareness. You're getting people that initial response of like, oh, okay, interesting. What's that? They see it a couple of times, and typically what they'll do then is Google it or look on their social pages, and if they're interested, they'll follow it a little bit more. So that's definitely a piece there. So you want to make sure that we're using CTV as your upper funnel awareness piece to really just like spread that message, far and wide, if you will. And then, as we mentioned, that retargeting piece is going to be the portion that really pulls that user back in. We know that they're excited about it. We know they're engaged. We know they're wanting to dial in, pull them back in and send them those retargeting assets, display, native, or video that gets them closer to that step. I think that's the piece that you would want to do, putting that whole funnel together. What should you be looking out for? What should you ask? Ask what the goals are. Ask and making sure you're clear on what the client is looking to do, who their intended audience is, and what measures of success are mattering to them most. That's something that's really great. And then in terms of budgeting wise, I think if possible, $10,000 a month would be our ideal, just to get to that stat sig portion where we can have significant amount of data. If that's not feasible, or if that's not an option, please reach out to us so we can talk through that and understanding what is capable or what's possible and what we can do within our platform.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. This is going to wrap our today's session. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did and got some useful takeaways. There are a few questions we're not able to address, so make sure to follow up directly with you after. And stay tuned for the follow-up email with a recording as well, so you can revisit everything you learned today. And thank you all for joining. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.